You all doing? It's Friday night, which means we're going to take a lot of your questions and a very pragmatic approach to the Manchester situation. The Manchester United situation. There is no situation at City. They're full of plastic. But we're going to start off with Paul Pogba. I want to talk about AnotherSolskjaer. There's a reason that team is there to the left. A very big reason. That is, for me, United's best team, give or take a couple of players. And I just think that, you know, when there's this talk of can we get top four, can we win a trophy, and all this positivity about future, is there a reality bite here that actually, can we actually build any momentum this season when we get one injury and we're in massive, massive trouble? I mean, are we going to do anything in January that allows us to do that? Or are we just going to drift through with this team that I just don't know. We'll talk about that in a minute. But let's talk about Pogba, which is quite fundamental to this because you can see where I've put Pogba in that team. I personally think Fred and McTominay should just stay where they are. I'd bring Pogba back into the Lingard position or Pereira position. That's where I'd like to see Pogba back. But we certainly are now back into this international break over. And the reality is with Paul Pogba that he played his last game for Manchester United on the 30th of September against Arsenal, and we've not seen him since. That's 2 months. 2 months without Pogba, and it could be 2.5, it could be 3. The reality is, I've got to stop saying the reality is, even I know I say it a lot. The point, it's in my head now, it's like Orange Penguins. The point is with Pogba, this is an injury setback, because if it's true about the fact that he's not going to be back for the Spurs game, I mean, I actually deep down thought he might be back for this game. What we can get from the Pogba situation is this, that he is not able to train at the moment. Pogba himself saying, Solskjaer himself saying today he's not ready to train yet. So I watched this clip of him doing basketball and I put a tweet out today and I said, how is he able to play basketball but he's not able to train for Manchester United? And I got a load of people, you don't know anything about basketball. He was just taking shots. So I thought, you know what? Maybe I should have looked at the clip before I tweeted. So I went and had a look at the clip. And he ain't just stood there with a bloody hopping around. He actually is moving and spinning and taking shots. And I'm like, look, I don't play basketball. I hate it. But when you play basketball, you put a hell of a lot of pressure onto your ankles because you twist and the way you stand. So I don't know. I don't disbelieve that he's injured. But I don't quite know why it's taking so long for him to get back. I actually am not starting off a conspiracy theory, but I am starting to get a little bit worried. You know all these people who were saying he'll never play for United again? I think he will play for United again, but am starting to worry that there is a reluctance to really play that many games for United because he's pissed off from the summer. And you know, when you look at the facts, he wanted to go in the summer. We forced him to stay. And if you are a certain personality, and look, to be honest with you, I'm quite stubborn. If I wanted to go and I saw Lukaku forcing his way out and I couldn't get my move out and I'm told I'm staying, I would be like, you know what, up yours. Let's see, you know, you think you're powerful telling me I'm staying. Let's see where the power really lies here because I will play when I'm fit, but I ain't going to rush myself. I'm not saying that is happening, but would you be surprised if that was the situation? Because you can't say that Woodward's clueless and the Glazers are clueless and then say that that's the situation may not have happened with Pogba. I just think we need him back very, very soon. And I think that this season, and I'm not talking about Solskjaer at the moment, would you buy Werner now Martial is back, says HighLife251? Yes, I would. But I just think that this situation that we're in at Manchester United is, I think because we've become so used to it that we are, when you actually take a step back and look at it, it's a disgrace. It's a disgrace. That midfield is a disgrace. Like, it's Fellaini's birthday today, and I can see United fans saying they miss him. You know what I miss Fellaini like? I miss him like a bad bout of diarrhea. I'm just glad he's not at the club. I couldn't stand Fellaini, but what I would say is, he was a first teamer. I couldn't stand him, couldn't stand the way he played football. I was glad we got rid of him. But you can't really get a player that plays consistently for the first team out the door and not replace him. Herrera, to me, was our best midfielder with Pogba. Didn't replace him. And basically, we've sold Pogba, haven't we, really? I mean, let's be honest. We've lost Fellaini, Pogba and Herrera. That's what's happened this season. 2 have been sold and not replaced. 1 wasn't sold, who wanted to go, and has missed most of the season. So that's the situation we are in. Our midfield, we joke about it. I call it the mint with the hole, the polo, but it really is very, very hard. Very, very hard for Manchester United. Pogba is facing an injury till January and he's gone. Get him sold and spread the money on 3 quality players. Ryan, Walden, 3 Para. Well, I wasn't going to talk about that, Ryan, but I mean, look, how would you feel as a United fan? Because it is Friday night and we can be a little bit more relaxed about the topics. Not relaxed about the topics, but we can go a little bit more in depth. I don't for 1 minute think Pogba's gone in January because United don't need to sell. I think United will, probably should and will let him go in the summer, but I don't think he'll be gone in January. But it's going to be interesting how many of these knocks Paul Pogba gets. Like, he normally does his hamstring for a month. Is that coming? I mean, if you're Paul Pogba, you know you're playing, and you know you've got to be ready for the Euros in the summer, and then you know you're probably going to move. I just don't know with Pogba, but I don't think he would go in January. I really, really don't. I don't think that's on the cards. Liam Brown says another of Pogba. He doesn't want to be here. If Ollie doesn't get a result this weekend, get Poch in. As fans should rally more to get the Glazers out. That's from Liam Brown. And Mojo says, Mark, it's the similar as it was with Lukaku in pre-season. We kept getting told that he's injured, and when he was gone, it's the same for Pogba. We kept getting told he's injured and he might be off. And Humi says, I'm so over Pogba, it's like a roundabout and we cannot get off. I am so done with players playing for money only and not the love of the badge. I'm a fan of Pogba's, so I am a fan of Pogba, the footballer. I don't know what he's like as an individual. I don't know where I personally think United should have sold him in the summer. I do. I think they should have done, and that's not me hating on Pogba or hating on United. I just think it, as I've said so many times, it was the right time to sell him. And we've got plonkers in charge who just think, oh no, we can't lose the merchandising. We can't lose that. I don't know why I'm saying that Ed Woodward's German, but they should have let that happen. But the incompetence of that board, this is why United are in trouble. We know that. I don't want to dwell on that too much. It's a fact. We know that we're in trouble. But what I want to do is just look at that on the left for a minute, because taking it away from Pogba but sort of keeping it on that. And Jake McGrady says that Jose and Leve want Matic plus 13 million for Eriksen. Thoughts? Jake, I would do that. I would do that deal. I don't think that will happen. If I was a Spurs fan and you bought Matic, I would be thinking about sacking Mourinho straight away. If he thinks Nemanja Matic is a player for Spurs, then Mourinho has lost it. I suspect Mourinho's lost it anyway, but he definitely has lost it if he brings Matic in. And why would you bring Matic in when you've got Eric Dyer? And I don't even rate Eric Dyer, but he's better than Matic. So I can't see Mourinho wanting Matic. But I would do it. 13 million for Eriksen and Matic. Bloody hell. I'd pay 60 million. I'd pay 100 million for Eriksen for them to take Matic. I just would love him to go, but I can't see that happening. But looking at that team on the left, that for me is United's best team that we can put out at this moment in time. With no injuries, everybody's fit and firing. That's United's best team. I agree. You might want to put Williams in at left back. I personally think for a young kid, that's ridiculous. You've got to bed him in. You've got to give him time. And I think Luke Shaw sharing that role with him is the way to go. And I think that Twansebi again maybe over Lindelof, but the similar thing for me. He is a young lad. Let's share it out a bit. So yeah, I would be open to those arguments about Williams and Twansebi. But apart from that, I think that is United's best team right there for you. And I do think Italy is best for Matic, Wanley. But when I was thinking about this today, because you know what, I did the press conference reaction. I read a lot of social media. A lot of people angry with Ollie again. We know this is happening a lot. And I thought, you know what, take away the passion for a moment, which is very hard. Just take it away. And think about this pragmatically, Manchester United's season. And you can do it for a second or two as well. What is it we're trying to get from this season? I read these quotes from Marcus Rashford, and he's saying that Ollie's a great guy, he's a great manager, and he's got the best interests of the club at heart. And I think great guy, great manager, best interests of the club at heart. Well, take away the great manager, and you're describing every single Manchester United fan. We're all or woman. Great guys or great women who have the best interests of the club at heart. Well, that is what every fan has got. Whether you're Ollie in, Ollie out, whether you're Woodward in, Woodward out, whether you want Pogba, whether you don't. It's your opinion and you've got the best interests of your football club at your heart with your opinions dictating how you feel. But you ultimately want your club to be successful. You're all great guys and great women, assumably. So Marcus Rashford saying that Ollie is a great guy, a great manager, and he's got the best interests of the club at heart. There's only one relevant statement there. Great guy is irrelevant. Best interests of the club is irrelevant because that's what you should have in every manager. Great manager. Well, this is what we're about to find out. So we move on from that statement. Some would say he's not a great manager. Look at his CV. Some would say maybe he can be a great manager. He's also said that things won't change overnight. This is Rashford. Things aren't going to change overnight. Ollie won't get what he wants from the players overnight. Time and patience is key. And I think when I look at that, and he also says we've got to put markers down for the future, which I think is a very good statement. But when I look at this, time and patience, let's not dwell on that. I think we've done, give him time. It's not going to change overnight, and Ollie's not going to get what he wants from the players overnight. Well, he's not going to get what he wants from the players overnight because some of these players are shit. I'll be blunt there, they are. It's not going to happen overnight, but he's been here a year. I really need to reiterate this. He's been here a year. Like, we're talking like he joined last week. He's been here a year. Look at what Rodgers has done. Look at what Lampard's done. You get bored of repeating stuff. The time and patience and it's not going to happen overnight rubbish is irrelevant unless the board provide the funds to build this team properly. There are so many factors to Manchester United, but the reality is, I've said it again, it's very, very simple. This talk of time and patience, this talk of it's not going to happen overnight, absolutely means nothing if we don't do what we need to do at this club, and that is spend a lot of money. And I hate to say that. I hate to say it. I don't want us to have to do that, but we've recruited so badly over the last 6 years, and we've got such a bad squad. It needs clearing out. It's like a cupboard full of old junk. It needs clearing out, cleaning up, and adding quality items into it. That's what's required at Manchester United. So all this talk about time and patience, all this talk about it's not going to happen overnight, all this talk about we've got to put down markers, it's not going to happen until the board do what needs to happen. So, and this is why I go to this team on the left here. That's as good as it gets. What pragmatically, I'm not being passionately, that we're going to fail, we're going to succeed, we're going to win 5 from the next 6, which I think we will. Pragmatically, look at that team on the left. That's as good as it gets right now till May. Unless we do something amazing in January, that's as good as it gets. 1 or 2 injuries, 1 or 2 of those players come out, and then you're relying on Rojo, you're relying on Pereira, you're relying on Matic, you're relying on Mata, you're relying on Lingard, you're relying on Greenwood. That's as good as it gets. And then a couple of injuries, and you're relying on the backup that's just not quite good enough, is it? I mean, Greenwood is, to be fair, but this is what I mean. So when people talk about top 4, the people talk about markers and people talk about future, pragmatically, and I'm not putting an opinion on this, just pragmatically looking at that team, is that as a best 11 with very little quality beyond it, is that really good enough to do anything this season? And that's why when Ollie talks about consistency and the players talk about we've turned a corner and it's about building from here, have we got enough to actually build this season? And it's not about being Ollie in or Ollie out, because you could make a case that what I'm saying here actually supports Ollie. You could also say it exposes Ollie. It depends how you look at it. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, and that's the title of the video, Reality Bites. We almost need to look at that situation and the reality of the situation at Manchester United and say, that's as good as it gets. That is as good as it gets. January transfer window is very, 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 very difficult to bring quality in. Even if you do bring players in, they're not going to bed in straight away anyway. That's as good as it gets. Couple of injuries which we've already got, and you're using players that aren't good enough. Is that capable of really doing anything this season? And will it be capable of doing anything next season? Because again, this goes back to what I was saying before. How can you say we'll be better next season than this season when we're worse this season than we were last season because of the players we let go and didn't replace? What if Pogba goes in the summer and we just replace him with James Maddison? You could say that's a better thing, but it doesn't strengthen us. It at best keeps us the same. This is my problem with the future. It's like, I can see that team with 3 or 4 signings with it being a decent team to build with, but we haven't even got those signings yet because they didn't bring them in the summer. So it's a reality check. It is a reality check. You might think that's good enough with the players like Mata to come in. I think it's 3 or 4 players away from even starting a rebuild, and then you'd need another 3 or 4 players, which is why I got frustrated in the summer. Do you go to games, Mark? It's funny because everyone who goes to games knows that Herrera was overrated, but people that don't go to games love the guy, says Cy James. I think that's one of the most idiotic comments I've ever seen. You're factually wrong anyway, because I know loads of people who goes to games who really like Herrera. You know when a match is on the TV, it doesn't play you a different match. I'm all for going to games. I think you can monitor things in a different way than watching it on the TV. But let's not get stupid, idiotic comments about if you don't go to a game, you don't see things that happen. That's a nonsense. I've been watching football for over 35 years. I consistently went to games for about 20 years. I don't go to many games now because I do watch-alongs on the United stand, and I haven't really got an issue if people think that that's an issue, because I could stop doing the United stand tomorrow and start going to United games again. I did that for a few years. I've started doing this now. I'm comfortable with doing it, and I'm comfortable with what I see on the telly. I agree, going to the game you can see more, but let's not pretend that, a man of the match on TV is always the same man of the match in the stadium. It's not like there's a different game being played. So I don't know what your point is there. I think you're trying to be a little bit smug. You've come across as a bit of a plonker, to be honest. 10,000 subs without a single video. Let's do it. Thanks for the contribution. He says, I've just bought the 92-94 T. Watch the show every day. How do you stay Ollie in with Poch there? I love Ollie, but if we don't win 5 out of 6, it's time for Ollie to go. We need this consistency to do that. Well, you know what? I suppose in some ways I've sort of justified why some people would be Ollie in, because I think the problem with that team and the problem with that squad is ultimately, is it good enough? Is it good enough? And is that necessarily Ollie's fault anyway? Yeah, you've got to take him on face value when he said the money was there and didn't spend it, but they didn't spend it with Mourinho, and it was the same net spend. I don't know. I'm looking at it pragmatically tonight, and it's probably depressed me more than when I'm passionate, because when I'm passionate, I just get very angry and frustrated, and I'll just go for it. Whereas tonight, I just wanted to sort of actually try my very best to take the passion out of it and look at it, which is why I've put that team up there, because that is as good as it gets. And we're never going to get that because we've got so many injuries, and we always get injuries. We'll never be able to really put that team out. But even with that, is that good enough? I think that team there can give a game against anybody, but it's not going to be our consistent 11 week in, week out, is it? We know it's not. I mean, as we said at the start, maybe Pogba doesn't even want to bloody be here. We don't have quality backups. When I look at our bench, we don't have any game changers to bring on, says Moho. And Liam Brown says, time and patience. Would the fans of Barcelona and Real Madrid, etc., be happy with 6 years of horrendous results, crap managers, and the board owners, says Liam Brown. Well, we're in the midst of an election campaign in the UK at the moment, which is highly irritating. Going on social media to interact with people about football and being told how to vote by twats. I mean, the whole point of voting is that you make your own bloody mind up. I don't need my timeline full of idiots telling me to vote for this, that, and the other, and then being abusive with each other. But I do feel that, bringing it back to football, we are almost, it's a far more interesting political landscape in football, because we are run by a party that is running our football club, and it's propaganda. They are absolutely trying to brainwash our fan base, and that's why there's a bit of toxicity in our fan base, because some people are happy to take their pound of their piece of gold from the club to spin it, and they're quite influential people. Some people aren't, and you couldn't have put it any better. This we've had 6 years of this. And would Haaland replace Martial or play next to him, says Matt Carroll. I've said this before, Matt. Again, why are we? I wouldn't mind Haaland coming to Manchester United, but he is very young. He hasn't played in a top league, and we think we're buying prime Zlatan. He's not going to come in and take Martial's place, because he's never played in a top league before. And I know he's played in the Champions League, but the Premier League is very, very different. And we do need a player like Haaland, because we do need, look at that team on the left. Martial injured, you've got to put Rashford up front again. We have no depth. I don't know why people worry about signing even Ronaldo. Oh, that means Martial won't start. I don't give a shit. You want competition for places and depth. Look at our fixture list between now and Christmas. We're playing weekend, midweek, all the way through till New Year. It's a ridiculous amount of games. if players stay fit, they're going to get tired and need rotating. If they get injured, they're going to be out for 3 or 4 games. A 2-week injury in December, you miss 4 or 5 games because there's so many coming up. So this talk of, I don't want him because it might stunt Rashford or Greenwood. We are at least one striker down. We are playing without a striker because you need that rotation. But what massively frustrates me on this is that we're talking about signing a striker, and yet we've just spoken about losing 3 first-team midfielders in 6 months. Fellaini went last January, Herrera went in the summer, and Pogba's basically been out all season. 3 first-team midfielders. All right, they might not have always started together, but rotation, which is what Mourinho had. He'd have Matic, he'd have Herrera, he'd have Fellaini, he'd have Pogba. We've lost 3 of those. And Matic has been out injured as well, hasn't he, to be fair? So we need midfielders. I can't believe... This is one thing where I think we failed as a United fan base, because I do it as well. We've just sort of lost the midfield argument. Like, oh, Haaland, Sancho, James Maddison. We need some bloody midfielders. And I'm not talking about attacking midfielders. We need centre midfielders. CDMs, box to box. We need midfielders, 100%. And we don't talk about it enough. And, Eriksen's not a centre midfielder. Haaland's not a centre midfielder. So what are we looking at in January? The key position... I think Haaland can wait till the summer. Sancho, if it's even possible, can wait till the summer. But we need bloody midfielders. If Pogba continues to pick up knocks for whatever reason, we are stuck with McTominay and Fred and maybe Matic, who we're talking about selling. I don't even like Matic as a footballer, but we can't sell him because we've got no depth in the midfield. To me, if he starts Shaw and Pogba, it's risky. Away at Bramall Lane, they're a tough, hard team. They could be targeted. Very rare you see long-term injuries come back as a tough, hard away game. Risky to me. I presume you're not up to date with the news because maybe you go and watch the press conference reaction I did this morning. If you haven't seen it, Pogba is not playing on Sunday. He's probably out for another 2 weeks. So there's 0 chance of Pogba playing. And I don't think Luke Shaw or Twansibi or Delo will play either, even though they're back in training. And I'd be very surprised if Matic plays as well. Because this is the thing with Pogba. He's not even back training yet. But even when he's back training, he won't be able to play straight away because Matic and Shaw have been back training for 2 weeks. But they're not match fit. So even when Pogba starts playing again, training again, he still might be 1-2 weeks away because he's been off for 2 months. He's fit. He's basically had... This is the scary thing about Pogba. When he does come back, I think some people think the minute he starts training, he'll be playing the next game. Well, I'd be very surprised. It could happen, but when you look at it, he's had a bigger time off than you do in the summer. And they have to go and, you look at the summer, they come back in July, they have 6 weeks of intense fitness work to get ready for the season. But they only have about a month off in June. Even less than that if you're an international. Pogba's done nothing for 2 months. So his fitness and conditioning is not going to be that good. At what point would you change your mind and say Ollie out in terms of results, says Mohamed Salim? I will answer that one in a moment. Joan Daniel says, Jose succeeding at Spurs will expose this joke of a board and might stir Ed's ego to recruit top players. What do you think of Jose's number 2, by the way? Interesting backstory, and Campos might join him as well. I don't know much about his number 2. Suffice to say, he's not like Rui Faria. He's not a very defensive-minded coach. He's more attacking. And, Mourinho's not a stupid man. Mourinho worked with Rui Faria for a very long time. And when he lost Rui Faria at United, we plummeted. So for him to come back into management and not have Rui Faria, has he taken that time off to go... Has Mourinho actually listened to what we've been saying? Not literally us, and he's done. He's done out here. He's a fossil. He's Jurassic Park. His tactics are done. Has he looked at that and reinvented himself? And I think in his assistant coach there might be a hint that he has, because that's the only way back for Mourinho, to reinvent himself and reinvent the way he plays football. If he does that, it might be very interesting to see. 10,000 subs without a single video, let's do it, says, reason we are Brexit United is because English people love United because of history, but players abroad just see a team on the decline, like Milan. Interesting thought. And Luke Haynes says, I actually think the way Poch coaches is what Ollie wanted to implement when he first joined, says Luke Haynes. Well, going back to that question, I feel I must answer it. At what point, and please do smash a like on the video, I really enjoy the Friday night show because it's a little bit more... relaxed, but we get through a lot more. We're staying live for a long time yet, don't worry. What I wanted to say is, I will answer that question. At what point would you be Ollie out? Because it actually amuses me, and it amused me with Mourinho. I've been doing the United stand for too long, and unfortunately, I didn't catch, or fortunately, I didn't catch any of Moyes. I didn't catch the first season of Van Gaal. I think we started doing United stand in the second season of Van Gaal, and at Christmas, I said Van Gaal out very early, very early. A lot of people, he didn't get sacked until May. So 5 months before he was sacked, I was Van Gaal. I wanted him out. I wanted him out of Manchester United. And it was interesting because there was still a lot of people who wanted him in, and for those 5 months. So I went very early on Van Gaal. With Mourinho, I was late. A lot of people went Mourinho out after Sevilla in the March. I didn't go out until West Ham in the October. So I was late with Mourinho. I gave him the summer. A lot of you lot who were watching the channel at that time were like, you've got to be Mourinho out. And I was like, no, I'm going to give him another season. I'm going to give him the summer. So I was early with Van Gaal. I was late with Mourinho. And with Ollie, I think I'm in between. I think it's a bit early at the moment, but I don't think it's too late. I still think there's a chapter more with Ollie. I think if Ollie's managerial career at United was a book, the first chapter was amazing. I want, it really is like a book, isn't it? The first chapter, that first 3 months was, this is the best book ever written. This is going to be absolutely historically epic. The middle chapters have been boring and disappointing, but we've not finished the book yet. Can it save itself? I'm trying to think of a trilogy that's got a first film, the second film's not so good, but the last one's great. There's not really many trilogies like that, to be fair. It's normally good, shit. But maybe the final Star Wars trilogy will be like that. Then again, The Force Awakens wasn't brilliant, was it? But so yeah, I feel that there's another chapter to be written with Ollie. Will it be a good ending? Will it be a bad ending? I don't know. What would it take for me to be Ollie out? Realistically, I think that it could be next month. It could be next year. It could be 2 years' time. What he's got to do is start not losing to teams like Bournemouth and West Ham and Newcastle. They're the ones that bother me the most, because we should be getting results against those. Getting smacked up by Man City will be very hard to swallow, but expected. It's more about Mourinho's Spurs, Arsenal's Emery, Leicester, West Ham. These are the teams you've got to show progress with. Liverpool and Man City, forget about it. They're rivals. I hate it that they're doing well, but forget about it. But we've got to start producing results that befit Manchester United, as far as I'm concerned. But I'll know like you. I'll know when I'm done. And I know people who are done, and I'm quite surprised that they're done. But I'll know when I am. And like Van Gaal, I was very early. I just knew he's done. He's done out here. I know Emery's done at Arsenal, by the way. I have got no problem with any Arsenal fan who is Emery out. He's done. I don't think Arsenal Football Club are going to realise that for a while, but he is done. And I didn't really have a problem with Spurs sacking Pochettino. I felt that was only going one way, and I think that they acted very quickly. I actually think that was very good, very, very good management of a football club by Spurs. I was surprised by it because he was a Champions League finalist in May, and he was, Real Madrid and United did want him, and they would have had to pay for him. So to pay Pochettino off and sack him, I think is a very, very ruthless decision. But you want that. You want that sometimes. You want ruthless leadership within a football club that has the best interests of the football club on heart. Because if you go back to that quote from Rashford about Ollie, he says he's a great guy, he's a great manager with the best interests of the club at heart. What would you say about Ed Woodward and the Glazers? Maybe they are great guys, but are they great leaders? No. And have they got the best interests of the football club on the pitch at heart? No. They've got the best interests of their bank balance at heart. So I think that Pochettino is a manager that I like, and he did great things at Spurs, but what decisive, ruthless action to say, look, this is only going to get worse? That they were done. Spurs were not turning that around. And I've said this so many times, when it starts to go wrong for a manager, 99% of them should be sacked because they don't turn it around. There's very few stories of a team starting to do badly and then suddenly become good. And I think Spurs acted correctly. I think it won't matter who United's manager and board is, etc. Sir Alex Ferguson boots will always be too big to fill. Saying that, United till I die, says Liam Brown. I don't agree with that, Liam. I think that United can fill those boots, but I don't. You know what? If Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was sacked, I'd be very scared. I would be very scared. And I touched on this before. I'd be very scared because what do we become as a football club? I think we've been. I spoke about this at lunchtime, to be fair, so I don't want to spend too much time on it. But we have become monsters as fans because of our board. They've created flip-flop toxic fans because we've had so many bad mistakes. We've had so many managers. We've had so much bad recruitment. We've become so impatient and so frustrated. And if you get rid of Ollie as well, what's next? How long do we give them? And we're all guilty of that. Who me says, out of that 11 you got on the side, and the public can answer as well, how many do you see as title-winning players with this building process to win the title in 2 to 3 years? I see 5 at best. I'll come back to that one. Chloe Jenkins says, did you see Ollie on FIFA Q&A? Found it odd him talking about being a sub and saying as a sub you need at least 20 minutes. Tell that to Mason. Yeah, I did see that, Chloe. That's a good point. I hadn't really thought of it like that. So Ole Gunnar Solskjaer basically doing a Q&A saying that you need at least 20 minutes as a sub, but he hardly ever gives Mason 20 minutes. And Rodney Schlanger says, are you worried about Ollie's similarities to Wenger? Not performing well enough, but the only one connected to the board who carries the club's DNA. There's I don't care what anybody says. Well, I do, because it's their opinion. But for me, I don't care what anybody says. I will always like Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. For many reasons. I think he's a fantastic human being from what I've seen of him. He's a legend of this club. And that won't change whether he loses the next 10 games 10-0 and gets sacked. I will still like the person and the legend he is of the club. But that doesn't mean I have to have him as Manchester United manager. If you cross, I think as fans we always feel guilty, don't we? I definitely feel guilt to be even the discussions we've had over the last few weeks about being Ollie out. I do feel guilty about it because I like him so much. He's a legend of our club. I remember that goal. I was alive for that goal in '99. So it is very difficult, and you almost feel guilty, but you shouldn't feel guilty because in life people fail because they fail. We're not making Ollie or Carrick or anybody else we like fail when they fail. And let's not forget, they're not failing at the moment. They did beat Brighton, and I think they'll win on Sunday. So I'm just talking in the general poor performances. We don't make them fail. They fail. They sack themselves. And I don't want Ollie to get sacked. I want him to do well. I want us to build. You've got Michael Carrick's a legend of the club, loves the club. Ollie is, Mike Phelan is. So, I want us to succeed. The easiest thing is that we succeed with what's in place because you haven't got to rip it down and build again and disrupt the players again. Having said that, you can't just blindly follow something because you want it to work. If somebody is incompetent, they sack themselves. If he loses 3 of his next 4 games, he probably should be sacked, let's be honest. And I'm talking Premier League. Let's forget the bloody Mickey Mouse Cup. That's irrelevant. We've qualified. So, I think football fans get an unfair ride from the press, from fellow fans, from our own fans. We do attack each other quite regularly, and I think it's very unfair because we're just fans of the club. We're just fans of the club that care, and we just have opinions. And we don't sack managers. They sack themselves. People say, look at Arsenal Fan TV, they drove Wenger out. And, I disagree. I think Wenger got himself, should have been sacked way before that. As a neutral, as somebody who has no interest in Arsenal, Wenger should have been sacked years ago. That was bad ownership and a manager that just clung on for too long. And if Ollie gets the sack, he will get the sack because he deserves the sack, because I've never known so much love for a manager. Ollie's at the wheel. Everybody was so happy those first 3 months. How have we gone from that to being in a situation where a percentage of the fans are Ollie out? It's not because fans are fickle and just suddenly said, I don't like him anymore. They've been delivered evidence, and especially from the summer. In the summer, everyone was like, it's not Ollie's fault. We've got to get Woodward out. If we fail, we've got to get Woodward out. And then over the season, because of bad performances, bad tactics, bad selections, people have gone, yeah, Woodward needs to go, but is Ollie really that good? So yeah, we do feel guilty, but and I would feel guilty, but basically managers sack themselves, don't they? Going back to what Humi said, that team on the left, how many of those players are title winners? Because apparently that's what we're going to do in the next. That's what we're building towards. We're not going to get there overnight, like Marcus Rashford says, but we will get there. How many of those players are title-winning teams? Title-winning players? It's very difficult because De Gea is, because he's won a title before and he's definitely got the potential to be a title-winning goalkeeper. The evidence is there. Maguire and Lindelof. I don't know. I think with this is going to be some players in this that you've got to wait to see whether they are top 4 players. At the moment, Manchester United are in 7th or 6th or something like that. We're not even a top 4 club. So I've said this before. When McTominay and Fred play well, at what level are we judging them? Are they playing well because they're good mid-table Premier League players? Are they playing well because they're top 4 players? Are they playing well because they could be title-winning players? And at the moment, United are very much like a mid-table team. We win, we lose, we win, we lose against mid-table clubs. So it's hard to tell what level United players are. Harry Maguire, has he proved he's a top 4 player? Not yet, but he could be. Lindelof, I would say the same. Wan-Bissaka, I think, can be one of the best players in Europe. So I would say Wan-Bissaka and De Gea definitely can be title-winning players. Luke Shaw, probably not. Williams, in a few years, could be. Fred and McTominay, I think the jury's out on those two, isn't it? You need to see Fred and McTominay playing against top 4 sides to understand how good they are. They played very well in the Carabao Cup against Chelsea, but that was half of Chelsea's decent side. So I think with Fred and McTominay, I'd be very surprised if they were both playing in title-winning sides for United. But McTominay, I think, has the growth in him, and I'd lean towards him. Pogba, I don't think will be here, so he's irrelevant. Dan James definitely has got the potential to be one of the best players in the country. So yeah, and I would agree with Martial and Rashford. So unfortunately, statistically, I doubt all 3 of that front 3 are going to make it. But for me, De Gea, Wan-Bissaka, maybe McTominay, James, Martial and Rashford. So half of that team. We need, but it's so we need to buy 5 players to supplement those players to be a title-winning team. But then we need another 5 players to be on the bench because we haven't got depth and we haven't got a first team that's good enough. So this is what I mean. It doesn't matter what we say. It really doesn't matter if you're Ollie in or Ollie out. It doesn't matter what Ollie says. It doesn't matter what Rashford says. If the owners of the football club don't implement the plan to allow us to get where we need to be, we won't get there. We need major investment. And they talk about the odd world-class player and youth. Well, the youth aren't three years away. They're probably 5 or 6 years away because Mason Greenwood in 3 years might be a first-team player playing week in, week out. Might be. And he's already playing now. So we're a long way off unless the club spends significant funds, which they haven't really betrayed an appetite to do that for a few years now. Red Baron says, these Man United fans who are loyal to Jose need to just follow where Jose goes. Jose was toxic for this club, and if you cannot see that, go support Jose. Jose Mourinho, I'm not Australian. Jose Mourinho is a very odd individual. Not in relation to him, well maybe he is, but you get Martial FC, you get Hazard FC, Messi FC. We've seen a development of this over the last decade where players almost they transcend the football club they play for. We see it on social media, especially Twitter. There are certain players that fans just absolutely follow. And Mourinho has the same thing. He's the only manager I've ever known this where he has a fan club. People just love Mourinho. And Zlatan's the same as well. And I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I just don't really understand it. I have favourite players, but I don't have players that I'm just like, oh, I'm in love with that player. I'm in the fan group. But Luke Haynes says didn't know Rants was on today. And, well, I don't know what you're referring to, Luke. So there we go. But going back to that, I mean, where I stand on Mourinho, I've said before, I think he's absolutely done. The only thing that will make Mourinho not be done is if he reinvents himself, and it's very interesting the coaching staff he's appointed. So I'm going to do a watch along on That's Football tomorrow at 12:30. If you want to join me, watch along 12:30, Spurs against West Ham. Not because I want Spurs to win, not because I want Mourinho to do. I'm just Mourinho is box office. He is appealing, and there's this curiosity as to how they're going to play. So I'm glad Mourinho is back in the Premier League because I just think, when people say to me, would you take Ronaldo back at United? Logically, it's stupid, but yes, I would, because you only live once. You want to be entertained. Mourinho provides entertainment. and I'm intrigued to see how it goes. And you know, he is an interesting guy. As far as Manchester United go, these people who say Mourinho shouldn't have been sacked, what are you on? Like where were you for the last year then, where everybody in our live comments was Mourinho out, he's destroying this club? He deserved the sack. Are we in a worse position now than we were under Mourinho? You could argue that we are, but that doesn't mean we should have kept Mourinho. You know, if your house is shit, it's shit. And that doesn't mean because it's still shit now a year later, you should have the person who made it shit in the first place back. Mourinho was not the solution for Manchester United. He was a bad fit. At the time we got him, I was over the moon because he wins the title first 2 years everywhere he goes, and I just wanted a title. Reset that clock. He didn't do it. He failed. He was toxic. He was opinionated. And the football we played was awful. And it was Mourinho United. He was just wrong for our football club. And he deserved the sack, and I'm glad he's gone. But now he has gone, I don't really hold any bad feeling towards him, because a lot of what he says is true. You know, some of the stuff he says about the way we were run, he's right. But that wasn't the reason he failed. He failed because he thought he was bigger than our football club. He thought he could implement a winning style at any cost, and to hell with our traditional tactics. But it's done. It's done. I don't think we need to dwell on it. I just think that there are people out there who are in Mourinho FC, and it is weird for a manager, but we see it with players, so why wouldn't it happen with managers? Red Baron, I'm sorry, Mark, but the amount of United fans that love Jose makes me feel sick to my stomach. I hate it because they value him more than the club. I don't think they do. I just think people have short memories as well. It's like it's Fellaini's birthday today, and the amount of United fans saying, we miss you, Marouane, love you. I just think time's a great healer. He was a bag of shit. He was awful footballer. I'm so glad he went. But time's a great healer, I think. People, don't hold that resentment, which I suppose is quite commendable. But would I want Mourinho or Fellaini back at United? God, no, never in a million years. Take away Pogba if we do not make Champions League or even Europa. Do you see any of these players kicking up to want out, or a big European clubs coming calling? Do you see these players waiting for 3 years, says Humi? Well, this is a problem we've never had at Manchester United. And, if we continue to be a poor team, i.e. not finishing in the top 4, will we become a club that starts to lose more and more players? We've lost big players over the years, Beckham, Van Nistelrooy, Ronaldo, going to people like Real Madrid, or all three of them actually. But we haven't consistently lost numerous players. We've not become almost a feeder club to better teams. It's interesting because you could say it's already happening. Look at Matic being linked to Atletico Madrid or Tottenham or Inter Milan. It's normally United players that we want to get rid of go to worse clubs, but they're going to arguably better clubs. Roma, are they a better club than us? Chris Smalling. Inter Milan, Lukaku and Sanchez, are they a better club than Manchester United at the moment? Arguably they are. So, we are Herrera, PSG. Are they a better club than us? Yes, they are. So we are starting to lose players, and they're players that, most of those we wanted to get rid of, but they're going to better clubs. How about in the future, if we continue not to be a competitive title-chasing club or Champions League club, will you start to see people hovering around people like Dan James, Martial? I don't think Rashford, McTominay, because they're United youth, but 3 or 4 years, Wan-Bissaka, will he stay at United if for 3 or 4 years we're a team that's finishing 6th, and then a bigger club comes in for him? You've got to be careful of that. We're reality check, uncharted territory. We are all talking about this bright future. We have to achieve it, because if we don't, we're stepping into somewhere we haven't been for we've never been. United didn't win a title for over 2 decades. Of course they didn't, between the 60s and the 80s, but the late 60s and the 90s actually. But we are in the Premier League era. Football's nothing like it was then, and to have a long elongated period without success could be a real eye-opener, because there's a lot of money in football these days. And it's not, if Leicester continue to grow and keep the structure correct, it won't be a flash in the pan. What I'm trying to say is, if Leicester finish in the top 4 this year, why shouldn't they finish in the top 4 next year if they're a well-run club that add to the success that they've got? money is... Everyone's got money these days, and everyone's got a structure, and it's not flash in the pan anymore that, oh yeah, Leicester win the league, but they won't win it next year. If Leicester get top 4, why wouldn't they get it next year? So United have got the running race that United are saying they're going to win in the future. They've got to start getting the skates on and start running, because at the moment I feel like we're still jogging, saying don't worry, we'll be there in the end, but everyone else is running and I don't see them slowing down. So the gap could get bigger is what I'm trying to say, instead of getting closer. We're all assuming that we're going to get there in the end, and we're jogging along. It's fine, don't exert yourself, don't try too hard, because in the end we'll win. But everybody else isn't slowing down, and there's a lot of people ahead of us at the moment, so it's be very interesting, but we're not going to go anywhere, are we? Please do smash a like on the video, everybody. Make sure you subscribe if you're new. We are playing a game on Sheffield United at 4:30 on Sunday. So a few people were saying, what time's the kickoff tomorrow? It's not till Sunday. But we will have some content for you tomorrow, of course. And if you want to join me at 12:30, I will be doing a watch along on That's Football, Mark Goldbridge That's Football, for Spurs versus West Ham, just because I'm curious, and I'm sure a lot of you will be as well. So if you want a bit of a watch along chat, join me for that. I think as for us fans, to start thinking Poch in because he is available is a big insult to Ollie and to United. Seeking our manager to be sacked because a sacked manager becomes available. It is a bit of an odd thing, Mojo. It is a bit of an odd thing. I would actually agree with you on that. And I don't agree that Ollie's story has been told yet. But I don't think that pressure of a decent manager proven in the Premier League being available is a bad thing. I think it's a good thing. I think it's a good thing to keep people on their toes. And I think Ollie will be on his toes now. And I think Mourinho will put him on his toes as well. So I think that this last week, as I've said before, is a good thing. Pochettino is available and Mourinho is back to prove a point. That should get Ollie up on his toes, and we should reap the benefits of that. That's what I'm expecting. If he fails, he's in trouble, isn't he? Because the press won't keep quiet about Mourinho overshadowing him, and the press won't keep quiet about Pochettino being available. So I think it's good pressure. And you know what? In the CV of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, imagine this. He turns it around from this point. He starts winning consistently and turns out to be the manager we want. These are the sort of ticks you want in your CV, because he's got a real challenge now. There's somebody who would have his job, and there is somebody who he took their job who has got a better opportunity than them to go past him. It's going to be a really interesting battle. Be honest, are you just closet Ollie out, says Luke Haynes? No, I really do find this amusing. Please do keep asking me this question, because you might be quite new to the United stand. As I said, with Van Gaal, I went Van Gaal out very early. With Marino, I was a bit late. If I was Ollie out, I'd say it. I've got no fear of saying Ollie out if I'm Ollie out, but I'm not. I've explained it so many times, and I just don't feel that the final chapter's been written yet. And it might not be the final chapter. It might be a trilogy. It might be a Pentagon-y, or whatever they call it. This could be the first book of many books in Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's Manchester United managerial career. Or it could be a one-book thing, but I still think there's a final chapter to be written yet. Jose, and that final chapter could be by Christmas, or it could be May, or it could be 10 years away. I don't know, but when I will tell you. I've got no fear of that. Milverton Richard says Jose will do well at his new club. He has a team to play Jose ball. He will get money and will do well. They are coming. Well, let's find out. Thanks everyone for watching. Smash a like on the video, please. Let's see if we can get 1,000 likes, and I shall see you all tomorrow. Thanks for watching.